Hey everyone, Vicky from Valkyrie Tarot coming at you. I know a lot of us are kind of stuck in our houses right now, so I figured I'd have a little bit of a talk with all of you out there in YouTube land. As many of you know, I kind of am self-educated about this twin flame journey that I'm on. I am a self-defined divine feminine, just given kind of where I fall on the line with things. And I have also put out some videos about kind of traversing the dark night of the soul, how to deal with your shadow self and things like that, which I'll be expanding on over, the next couple of weeks while we're all behind doors. This video, though, is going to be more of a broad topic, more about things that could come up as issues in a twin flame journey or as a result of relationships with other people. All of us have been in a relationship of some sort in our lives. Family, romantic, friendship, work, you name it. We have all had a relationship of some sort that kind of has pushed our buttons or triggered us in some way. So what I'm going to be talking about today is boundaries. Now, this was brought up, my idea for this was actually brought up after a conversation with someone who might actually be watching the video right now. So thank you for this spark of creativity. Boundaries are a tricky thing. They shouldn't be, right? We all know a clear boundary. We know the boundary between Mexico and the US and Canada, and we know that we need a passport to get across. Hold that thought. Why do we need a passport to get across the border? A boundary, okay? We can go from state to state without any issue, right? But we know we're in different states. Technically, a border is a boundary. It is a protective, invisible line, a bubble of protection, if you will, that we place around us for safety, to separate us from things that we don't want coming into our happy space, okay? Now, that's not wrong. We all have boundaries. I have boundaries myself. The interesting thing is that boundaries are usually not innately, given to a person when they're born. We're not born with boundaries. We're not born with blue eyes. We're born with blue eyes or brown hair or, dark skin, whatever. We're born with that. But we're not born with our beliefs, and we're not born with our morals, and we're not born with our boundaries. We are a culmination of the experiences that happen to us, or rather, that we let happen to us throughout our lifetime. Most often, people with a lot of boundaries are people that have experienced some tough times in their lives, and they felt a need to have these boundaries to protect themselves because in the past they didn't have these boundaries and they got hurt. On the flip side, you have people who generally have had an easygoing life for the most part. They don't recognize boundaries as easily because they don't have those same boundaries within themselves. Therefore, it's hard for them to understand them when they see them in other people. So how do we make this work? Because there's a big joke out there that when you're dating into your 30s, everyone, dating is like looking at the shelf at a grocery store and trying to figure out which dented can of soup you want more, right? So here's the thing. I've had my bad experiences in relationships. I've had really good experiences in relationships. And I take all of those things with me. I've learned from them. I've grown from them. I've become a better person because of them. I will never cheat on anyone because I have been cheated on. I believe in transparency. I believe in being open and honest about how I feel because I don't like the not knowing where I stand with someone. I am a person that talks through problems because I know in my past I didn't have that ability, and it caused so many issues in the long run. It caused miscommunication, and it caused resentment, and it caused awkwardness that we never survived from. I lost some great people in my life because I was avoidant and I didn't want to address the issue. I just ignored it and hoped it went away. But it didn't. It just got worse, and they went away. You get what I'm saying here? So the issue is that boundaries are very, very important. I'm not trying to be belittling or offensive to any of you out there that have a lot of boundaries and you feel like you're taken advantage of a lot and you feel like you shouldn't have to drop your boundaries, you shouldn't have to change who you are for other people. And you're right. You shouldn't have to change. The hard part is when your boundaries are not clearly defined. There are boundaries that are clearly defined in society. We understand the roles of authority. We understand the roles of relationships, certain age gaps, we understand sexuality for the most part. I know it's kind of been a gliding scale over the last couple of years, but the LGBT community has worked really hard to educate people on the different aspects of sexuality so that people don't overstep or offend their boundaries, right? Same thing happens with religion. Same thing happens with education. Same thing happens in family dynamics every single day. If a little kid yells at their father or their mother, they're going to get reprimanded. They learn their boundary. Okay? What happens in relationships is that sometimes we're afraid to show who we really are. We are afraid to be our authentic self because we've been rejected for it in the past. I myself have been rejected for who I truly am numerous times. I'm too honest. I'm too deep. I love too hard. I love too much. I don't think those are bad things, but unfortunately the people that I pull into my life are intimidated by that. And I try to adjust as best I can, and part of that is learning boundaries. So here's the issue. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a relationship or a almost relationship or a friendship or a work something where someone has overstepped your boundary and you have been offended. I bet you all of you could raise your hand out there. People don't think about other people's boundaries a lot, especially when they don't have those within themselves. Okay? A lot of times people will overstep because they are only focused on what's right in front of them in this little box that they call their ego. They're focused on them. They're focused on their own survival. And those of us with those boundaries that are being triggered or being offended, we all of a sudden pull back into our little safety bubble. Our ego triggers and says, how could you not know that you offended me? It's a boundary. It was clear. Was it? Was it explained? Was it clearly defined before somebody stepped over that boundary? It's not like we're in some Simpsons episode where Homer's looking at the big red button that says, do not push. And he goes, ooh, I gotta push it. It's not one of those situations. So if you have been offended by somebody that overstepped a boundary to you, I'm just going to ask you to step back for a second. Ask yourself why that bothered you. What is it about this person that offended you? Is it them, or is it the trigger of a memory that's attached to that boundary? If that's the case, you got healing to do. My friends, we all have healing to do. I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I know I'm not. I have my boundaries too. When I feel myself getting defensive about a situation, I have to pull back and I have to think about it. I have to say, why do I feel defensive? What is it about this situation that's making me feel defensive? How do I break this down and respond with compassion instead of with anger or, some sort of negative emotion? It takes practice. Believe me, I'm still learning it. I'm a Scorpio with Libra rising, Libra moon, Sagittarius and Venus. I'm freaking cayenne pepper on eggs in the morning. You get what I'm saying? It's hard. And it takes work. But it takes understanding on the other side of it. If someone has overstepped your boundary, and you know in yourself you didn't clearly define it to them, you got to try to understand that your negative reaction towards them, your negative emotion, your negative vibration that you're pushing out there because they offended you without even knowing it, you gotta try to step back and respond with compassion yourself. Respond with empathy. Say, I realize I didn't clearly explain this to you. Please, in the future, try not to do that. And in a healthy relationship, the person is going to say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I'll do better. I'm aware of it now. I'm sorry. But if you don't give the person that opportunity to do that, everything will crumble. Because you won't trust them. And they'll feel it and they won't understand what they did wrong. Resentment pops up. And that lack of communication, that gap between you just gets bigger and bigger. Communication is the thing that actually separates us from so many other creatures on this planet. The way that we can communicate with our voice and our verbiage, as well as our body language. In fact, I think I might do an extra video just based on body language one of these days. We are 80% non-verbal when we communicate. 80%. It's how I look at you with my eyes. It's how I move. It's how I posture. It's the expression on my face. It's the inflection in my tone. It's how I say things, not what I'm saying. The last 20% is the actual meanings of the words. And we have become a society that's hiding behind a fucking phone. We're texting. We're not talking. We're not face to face with people. And of course, everything going on in the world right now, it gets a lot harder to be face to face with people. But I'm face to face with you guys right now. Am I right? You gotta try, man. If you realize that you have been misunderstood or there has been a miscommunication, then you need to step back and say, okay, I didn't clearly define this. This is on me. Let me try and fix this from my front. If that person still continues to overstep your boundary and continues to trigger you, knowing that it is a boundary to you, then by all means be pissed off, write them off, ghost them, whatever you want to do. Because that's not healthy, that's toxic. But if you have someone who is genuine and who is kind and who didn't realize that they meant to hurt, that they don't realize that they hurt you, they didn't mean to do it, respond with compassion, respond with empathy. Look within yourself and think about, how could I have done this differently? How can I fix this communication issue? Everything can be fixed. You just have to be in the right mindset. You just have to be willing to try. Good luck out there, guys. Deuces.